Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, sir.
Please, can we wait just for 5 minutes, just for the arrival of some others? So we start in the next 5 minutes, sir.
All right, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. Welcome. We just decided to wait for 5 minutes for others to join, so we can take up from there. Hello, madam. You can use it now. It's the one everybody. The one I sent SMS. I sent SMS. Kai.
Okay. Yeah, it's no motor. C'est bon, on n'a pas Kenny. Ok.
Yes, good morning once again. It's already 6 minutes after 10. I'm using this opportunity to greet my fathers and mothers in the house. My name is Aminu Lukman. I work with Jabot Consulting. I am a certified professional in I have almost 10 years of industry experience. Very soon, some of my colleagues will be joining us in. So for the purpose of starting this program, I want us to say a silent 1 minute opening prayer.
Alex, yeah.
Amen. Amen. Yes. Thank you very much to everyone for joining today's seminar. The seminar tagged Pension Seminar. Precisely today, we will be taking a look at what pension is, particularly from the Nigerian perspective. Let me use a slide here. Okay. So yes, as I welcome us to today's program, we'll be looking at what retirement is. I believe we can see my screen. Please, can we confirm that we can see my screen? According to the general rule, retirement is usually a point where a person stops formal or informal employment, either voluntarily or having met a specific condition such as age, period of work condition, health, accident, sharp fall in productivity, company being stressed, or one realizes it is time to hand over, and more. These are some of the conditions that lead to voluntary or compulsory retirement. For many people, particularly those who work in the corporate sector, it's usually based on a condition. While for people who work as entrepreneurs on their own, they usually retire voluntarily based on reasons like it's time for them to hand over, it's time for them to reduce work, they want to reduce their productivity and the likes. However, if we look further, we all take pension just to ensure that we secure our financial future for the purpose of being self-sufficient or financially independent. While learning about the end game, which is pension or which is retirement, it is very important. Preparing for it in advance is much more important. It's yours to determine or to define what your retirement is and should look like, while it's us to guide you through what retirement should be. By standard history, retirement planning starts when you start earning or when you start working. However, we advise people 10 years to the D-Day, 10 years to your retirement. Begin to work out a lot of other things. Look at things you need to do. You need to take time out regularly from that time because that 10 years moves very fast. Gathering all information about your finance, which includes your assets, your liabilities, your investment, your capital and recurrence, while you reevaluate your financial plans for the future. We ask you to do all this simply because it's better for you to know 10 years to your retirement. Are you still owing money in your cooperative? Are you still owing some loans you need to pay off? Are you still having some things that are loans that might become burden upon retirement, which you need to set them off? You need to begin to look at your investment options. How well are you investing? What investment options have you taken? Hope the investment options are yielding what they should yield and the likes. You also need to look at how you set aside spare capital to help you stabilize upon retirement, particularly in this part of the world, Nigeria. For those who work in the private sector, they usually need very little spare capital because upon retirement, within 1 or 2 months, they begin to benefit their retirement benefits. But for those who work in the government sector, particularly in the federal sector, they stay about 1 year to 1 year, 6 months before they begin to benefit their retirement benefits. For those who work within the states, depending on the states, for places like Lagos, in mainstream ministries, people wait as long as 3 years, while for some revenue generating agencies, they wait within 1 year, they get their retirement benefits processed. So we advise us to plan, to strategize, and look ahead so that we don't retire with debts and loans on us. Now let's look at pension in brief. Pension is a guaranteed amount or reward received monthly or periodically by a retiree based on a decision taken by the retiree, either for life or for a defined period. Please, let's note that either for life or from a defined period. The retiree receives it either from government, from workplace, from philanthropic organizations, humanitarian organizations, and the likes. The concept pension was created because it is hard for most employees to save enough money while working on their own. So it was discovered that most employees usually spend what they earn, and it became hard for them to save enough money while they are working. So for that reason, they had to create a system that will help them save money while they are working so that by the time they stop working, they can benefit that money. It was enacted to create a relief for employers whose former employees might be stressed and in need of financial support from time to time. You know, in the past, when there was no pension and a former employer becomes financially stressed or has an health condition and needs financial support, they usually try to approach their previous employee, in which most of those employees will feel not responsible for that employer because the employer is no more working, has now become a formal employer, is no more working with them, and they don't see the productivity in which they have to invest on in the case of the retirees. So when an industry or a company has over 100 or 200 of such, and they begin to see regular requests, then it becomes more disturbing and it becomes a serious burden. So for such reason, pension was created. Pension was also created as a financial support for people who cannot work actively again. It was just like a support system. Okay, they cannot work actively again, but at this time, let them benefit something and have something they can have as a take home. It was created to make employers take responsibility of the welfare of their formal employee. So this system was created just to ensure that employers can take care of some responsibilities, which includes the welfare of their formal employee. So what the formal employee has saved over time, the employee can begin to enjoy it as a form of welfare. And you know, we call it the contributory pension scheme, which is a contributory pension contributed by both parties, the employer and the employee. It was also created to reduce the fear of unknown realities of post-work experience. I know for many employees who are moving towards retirement, especially 1, 2, 3 years towards retirement, some of them begin to envisage the future, look into the future. And for some of them, as they look into the future and they don't have enough set aside or tangible plans set aside, they begin to wonder, what will they be doing after retirement? What source of income will they have after retirement? What reliable source of income or tangible source of income will they have after retirement? And that is one of the reasons why we are doing this today, to ensure that we guide us aright and ensure that we can plan for the future. Moving to the next slide. Some of the challenges we usually have when dealing with pensions is that people tell us, my pension is X and my colleague's pension is Y. Why do my pension vary? So when retirees ask why their pension vary, or when people in the service ask why the amount in their RSA, the retirement savings account, vary, this is just a summary of why it varies. Pension for individuals usually vary based on amount accumulated of savings and other benefits of the employees while in active service. Now, we are referring to savings in your retirement savings account. There might be instances where two friends get employed on the same day. They are of the same age. They are employed on the same grade level. They get promotion at the same time and move from different grade levels from one time to the other. And at the end of the day, they retire with different amounts in their retirement savings accounts. Some little matrix can be a cause for that. Let's say during the period of active service, one of them was working in an office where he or she travels a lot. That is official travel. And for that reason, travel allowance and the likes increased the accumulation that came into the retirement savings accounts. Also, at times, they both started work together and they worked in different agencies at some point in time. And in certain agencies, they use a different salary scale. So by the time they move into a new agency and the other is still in the old agency, one is now enjoying a new salary scale, which can imply that the salary might be higher or might be lower, or the allowances such persons might be entitled to might be higher or lower. So deductions from such allowances and salaries will eventually influence an increase or a variation in the respective retirement savings account balance of each person. So also, for some who move into some industries, especially industries where they work on high risk, they set aside usually higher percentages, which are higher than what those who work in the mainstream ministries set aside. So percentage set aside at times might make your retirement savings accounts balance vary. The salary structure, just like I said, the level of entry at the point of retirement. At times, two people get into service at the same time, but their level of entry is different. So that eventually affects their retirement savings accounts balance. The progression and promotion at different points in time. At times, some people's promotion might be effected at the right time, while some people's promotions were delayed. Additional voluntary contribution. At times, every other metrics might be the same, but at one point in time or the other, one of them looked into his retirement savings account and feels, no, this might not be enough for me. This might look small. I have spare cash I could contribute. So over time, that person also did some additional voluntary contribution. And just like I explained earlier, allowances and other entitlements. These are also some of those things that makes the RSA balance, the retirement savings accounts, vary. Below is just a question people ask in most cases. that if I start pension now, what will happen if I die? What will happen if I give up? The remaining balance, won't you people eat it up? Or will you give it to my spouse? Or will you give it to my family? The law that guides the pensions in Nigeria, which is the Pension Reform Act, empowers the manager of one's pension to hand over the balance to either the spouse or a named beneficiary, which is whoever the retiree must have named. In Nigeria, we run basically three types of pension. We run what we call a single life pension, a survivor's pension, and an estimated lifetime pension. What is a single life pension? For those of us who know the old pension scheme is to benefit the person who has worked, the employee, for as long as that employee lives. And in the new pension scheme, that is a similitude of what we call annuity. It is just for the retiree or for the employee to benefit his pension for as long as he or she lives. And once he or she demises, then the pension will either the pension manager will look into the pension account to see if there is a balance for the beneficiaries or for the next of kin, as the case may be. The survivor's pension is the second type of pension we run in Nigeria. Although this is not as common as the first and third pension, because most people don't usually opt for the survivor's pension. It's okay. I think we can see my shared screen. Okay, precisely. The survivor's pension, as I was explaining, is a pension in which, or is a scheme in which it's an annuity with a spouse option. What such annuity does is to extend one's pension to one's spouse, so that one spouse will benefit from one's pension in the case of the demise of the retiree. In this situation, let me give a simple analogy. An analogy of a man who gets married at the age of 20 or 25. And at the age of 40, his spouse, he lost his spouse. At the age of 45, he decides to remarry. And at 45, he marries a young lady of 20. And upon retirement, he looks at the age of his wife and feels, oh, I might give up in another 10, 15 years. If I give up in 10, 15 years, how can I ensure that my spouse benefits from my pension or continue to benefit my pension? In such a case, such persons can take an annuity with a spouse option, such that in the case of the demise of the retiree himself or Three. On option 1 and 2, which is the single life pension and the survivor's pension, there's an option of incremental pension. That means a retiree can opt for an incremental pension option where you start. However, when one opts for an incremental pension, one begins to benefit his pension from a discounted rate. So what we mean by a discounted rate is from a lower amount. If the person was initially expected to take a level pension, and let's say the person was expected to get, let's say, 100,000 on a monthly basis on a level pension, if he decides to go for an incremental pension, it might start with a value like 80,000, which will now increase over time in a span of 2-3 years, increase at an escalation rate of 6%, 6.75% maximum, and over a period of time, it will begin to even earn 120, 130,000 and higher as long as the retiree lives. So in such cases, the pension will continue to increase like the salary increases with time, and it will continue to increase as long as the retiree can survive. So although level pension is the most common in Nigeria, where the retiree receives a specific amount for the duration of the pension, either on the single life pension, on the survivor's pension, or on the estimated lifetime pension, the retiree will continue to enjoy a fixed amount for as long as that. Okay, let's look at the constituents of the retirement savings accounts. After looking through the constituents of the retirement savings accounts, I would open the floor for some Q&A. Then I can continue with the slide. The constituents of the retirement savings accounts for everyone, especially for people who started working before 2004, that was when the Pension Reform Act came into play, you would have what we call the accrued rights. The accrued rights is an amount in which one is entitled to as pension within the time in which one started working to the time in which the contributory pension scheme started. So we called it the old defined benefit pension scheme. The accrued rights is a submission or is calculated based on the old defined benefits pension scheme, and which is usually added into the contributory pension scheme on the retirement savings account. So you will see in your statement, if you check, you usually find a lump sum that comes in either as the first sum, second, or the third, and that is usually the accrued rights. Also, the second part of the retirement savings account in the components is the employer's part of the pension. For different employers, there are different percentages in which they are mandated by law to set aside. For that of government, there is a 8% and 10% rule of the basic salary, which for people who work in some other industries, particularly industries that are volatile, that have high risk, or that work in the private sector, in some places they set aside as much as 40% of their present salary. So when they are setting aside as much as 40% of their salary and other additions and other allowances, that implies that at the point of retirement, they will most likely be coming out with a larger volume in their retirement savings accounts. Also, there is a pension build-up from our monthly salary or from our monthly earnings, which is the part in which is removed from our monthly salary. If we check our pay slip, we'll see that there is always a part deducted for pension, and that is the third part. The fourth part in which we usually have in the retirement savings account is the returns on investments. So return on investments would come in based on your amount or your sum kept in the custody of the pension fund administrator, in which the pension fund administrator uses to trade or for investment on your behalf over a period of time. So you'll be finding returns on investments in your RSA, your retirement savings accounts. However, in recent times, we've come to realize from findings that most PFAs usually do an add-up of returns on investments. Let me explain that. Like last year, the returns on investment was 20,000. 2 years ago, it was 18,000. This year, it was 22,000. They will add up the three. And usually when they are declaring the returns on investment, they will tell you that over time that you've been with them, you've gotten a returns on investment of 60,000 naira. So we should understand that when we get the message of returns on investment, it's usually showing a cumulative sum which has been returns over the years and not returns in the present year. But if we want to see the returns in the present year, then we should study that on our statement of accounts. The PFA, that's the Pension Fund Administrator, is entitled to give us a statement of accounts either quarterly, biannually, or annually. Then the fifth part of the retirement savings account is optional addition or optional contribution by the retiree. While in service, one decided to just add some token into the contributory pension scheme because one could augment it, one could use that to increase it, and one did that over time. That is also a part of what you have in the retirement savings account. These are the 5 basic components of the retirement savings account. In recent times, there is an encouragement for retirees, or not for retirees, but for people who are working actively to move from one PFA to another when the transfer window was opened. The transfer window was opened for all people who are working just to ensure that they move from one place where they are not getting a good service to somewhere where they are getting a good service. But if one is comfortable with where he or she is, then one needs no reason to move. However, most of the reasons why employees move from one PFA to another are usually around a PFA is giving a higher returns on investment and a PFA is giving a lower returns on investment. So they usually move from those with a lower returns on investment to that of a higher returns on investment. Also is that investment decisions of the PFAs, that the PFA invests in certain industries in which they are really interested in. So for such reasons, they will say, oh, if my PFA is not investing in an industry I'm interested in, then I'll have to move to a PFA that invests in an industry I'm interested in, so as to help grow that industry and also get returns on investment from that industry. 3 is customer service. The third and most famous reason why people move from one PFA to another is the PFA of a colleague gives them good service. They give them packages at the end of the year. They give them regular updates. They update them on various happenings. They do some social functions in which they call in their active contributors. And once PFA is not doing that, then one might decide to say it's high time one moves to where one will enjoy the benefits of being a contributor in such a pension fund administrator. So However, we also want us to understand how the pension moves. Our pension usually moves from the source, which is the deductions from our hand or from that is from both employer and employee, to the PFA. The PFA signs it or receives it and moves it straight on to the PFC. So the PFA is the pension fund administrator, which is the one we usually know, while the PFC is the pension fund custodian, which we usually do not take cognizance of. However, the PFA moves our fund to the PFC. But if we look to our documents provided by the PFA, you usually see who our PFC is. Then from there, the PFC moves an approved amount to listed stocks on the stock exchange market. So when we call approved amount or an approved percentage, it is a percentage that is approved based on the present funding or fund option in which we find ourselves. I know some of us are aware of our fund option. We are either on option 1, option 2, option 3, or option 4. And a very limited amount of people are on option 5 and 6. So based on the fund option in which we are presently, we'll determine what percentage the PFC can remove from our RSA and use for trading, which will determine where or what will determine our returns on investment at the end of the business year. It could either be on the positive notes, which is profits, or on the negative notes, which is loss. But whichever it is, I want to say we are guided, and the law has a way of providing for a safety net for all of us. Thank you very much for listening to this point. This is slide 7 of 15. I think I would appreciate if we take some Q&A, some question and answer, so that we can move further. Thank you very much. Let me open the floor for question and answers. Please, in case we have questions, let us kindly signify. We can unmute our mic, we can raise our hands, and we can ask our questions. Please, do we have any question? Please, do we have any question? I can't hear us. I can see someone is trying to speak, but you need to unmute yourself, sir, so that we can hear you. Please, do we have any question? Please, can we unmute our mic and respond? I want to be sure that we are clear on what has been discussed so far. Hello, sir. Yes, we can hear you, sir. Sir, can you adjust your volume? We can't hear you clearly. Or can you bring your device closer to your mouth? It's seriously breaking. I can't hear you, sir. I don't know if others can hear you. Hello, I can't hear you, sir. I know you are trying to speak, sir, but I can't hear that, sir. I don't know if you can type it in the chat box. That might be a bit faster. Please, sir, can you type it in the chat box so I can respond to the question? I can see one of my senior colleagues in the industry here, Mrs. Stella Obi. You are welcome, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Lukman. I appreciate you, sir.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. I can see that the voice is clear from your hand, but I wouldn't know if you had when one of the retirees wanted to ask a question now. I didn't hear anything on my side.
Neither did I.
Okay, that means the network issue is from his end. Okay. Let me expect that his question will come into the chat box so it can be responded to. So please, any other person with a question? Any other person with a question? Hope I'm permitted to take a step further so we can continue with this session. Wow, I can't hear him and he's still trying to speak. So I can't hear you at all, but I can see you are trying to speak. Okay. I wouldn't know if you can remove your earpiece, sir. So you unplug it from your device, so you speak directly into the device, whether that might work.
I'm not interested in school.
I can see a question, how can reconciliation be made if contribution from the employees was not remitted
Hello?
before an employer retires?
Ekaro.
I can see that in the box.
Ekaro. Oh, sorry. I was having a
Mrs.
call, that is
Marian
why. Sorry.
Omede.
That call is not for you.
Okay.
I was having a video call, that is why. Sorry.
I should know. Why?
Okay, yes, I've just muted that so that it will reduce the interruption from our end. So the question is, how can reconciliation be made if contribution from the employee was not remitted before an employer retires or before the employee retires? My candid advice, which has worked for many retirees I've worked with, is to one, get a statement of account from your PFA. From the statement, look for deductions that were missing, identify them, list out the months and years concerned, put up a letter with a list of the months and years concerned, and submit through the admin to the head of your agency and copy your PFA. In such cases, the letter will be looked into, the statement would be looked into, and the remittance will be done so that one does not receive a smaller amount instead of the exact amount one should receive. So I think I can say that once again. One should request for a statement of accounts of his RSA from his PFA, that is the Pension Fund Administrator, one should take time to look through it carefully for both remittance from both the employer and the employee. The remittance is the remittance of government, and the employee is the one from his or her own salary. But usually in this part of the world, particularly in Nigeria, at the early stage, you don't usually see the remittance from government, but rather you see the remittance from your own salary. Look through it carefully, identify the months that are missing, list them out, put up a letter to indicate that those months, remittance for those months were missing, send a letter with the list of those months, that is the month and year. Let's say April 2020 was missing, March 2019 was missing, September 2018 was missing. You list out those months like that and put up a letter attached to it, addressed to the head of one's agency, and copy your PFA. In the case of those who work in the state, that is the best advice. For those who work with either private, the same advice works. For those who work with federal government, they are also expected to copy the Office of the Accountant General. When there is a missing amount like that, as they copy the head of their agency, they should copy the Accountant General. Usually the head of the agency, they copy the head of the agency through the PDO, that is the pension desk officer, or they put the pension desk officer of their agency in copy. If it's the remittance from the employer, I can say Engineer Ibrahim is saying I am not audible, or the mic is not audible. I don't know if others are not hearing me properly, so I can come back again. Please, can others confirm that I am audible or not, so I can, if I am not, let me just do a recap.
You're very audible.
Okay, thank you, ma.
I
I've just
can hear
confirmed that I'm audible. Then if you can't hear me clearly, that means there is a network challenge on the other hand. I have tried to situate myself at one of the best places for me to get the highest bandwidth, to get the best network. The correction from Infinix, from one of the retirees here in Infinix, with the device Infinix 08, either I've said, I mentioned earlier, or the last explanation was based on that of the employee. That is the person who wants to retire. He realizes that there were deductions on his pay slip, and the deduction was not paid in to his RSA. In such cases, the retiree should go through the statement, pick a list of all those places that are missing, which is the months and years that were missing, identify them, put up a letter, and submit it to respective authorities. I said for those in state and private sector, they should submit it to the head of their agency and copy their PFA. And for those in the federal civil service, they should also copy the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation. If the part missing is the part of one's employer, it is, I would say it has become a culture in this part of the world that in most cases, the employer waits for the employee to retire before the employer pays his own part of the pension. So usually that is why we used to have a delay in processing retirement benefits. When someone works and upon retirement, the person has to wait for 1, 2, 3 years before one can access the retirement benefits. It's because the law does not allow one to begin to process the retirement benefits when the part of the second counterpart, which is the employee, has not been paid in. So usually we will now have to wait upon retirement. It's usually a general problem that for people in the federal system, they have to wait at times 1 year to 1 year, 6 months before their employer, which is the federal government, pays in its own parts. And for those in the states, usually they wait for within 1 to 3 years. For those in the mainstream ministry, it is usually 3 years and some months, or 2 years, 8 months upward. While for those in revenue generating agencies in the states, it is usually subject to when their agency can generate enough revenue or get subvention to pay its own part of the pension. So that is why that delay usually comes in. But for those in private sector whose remittance had been done by their employers, usually in the month of retirement, they start processing. Once they retire this month is April, they can start processing, and for next month, they will start earning their retirement benefits. That is how the contributory pension scheme was designed to work. It was designed to work in such a way that immediately one retires, one begins to enjoy the retirement benefits immediately. However, because of the delay in payment of the part of the employee, usually it causes or brings about a delay in the time in which one would be able to process his or her retirement benefits. So usually when the employee pays in his or her own part, when the employer, pays in his or her own part, is when you now hear that a bond is released for them to now begin to process their retirement benefits. So I think I'm clear on that. I wouldn't know if I'm clear on that, if I can move further. Please, if we have any other question, I would want to accept questions now, or better still, drop it in the chat box. If there is no other question, okay, someone wants to
go
speak.
ahead. You can go
Okay,
ahead, please.
Thank you very much, sir. Let me continue with the slide in which we were using earlier. Okay, yes, we stopped on the constituents of the retirement savings accounts. The next thing we want us to note is for those of us who are in the federal system of government, there is a program called verification. Verification is a point in which they request for all our documents, they collate all those documents, they confirm it with the ones they have in their archives, so that they can process our pension, which is the part of the government. In the case of those who work in the states, the informations are usually provided by the PDO, who goes through the file of the employee or the retiree at each point in time to collate all the informations: when the person came into service, the age upon entry, the age of exit, the grade level in which the person came in, the promotion at every point in time, collates everything and forwards it to the offices that should work on it, so that they can compute and calculate the remittance from government, which is supposed to have been paid in initially, and pay it in rightly. So usually these are the documents that are usually used. There are precisely, I think, 21 documents. On the first page are 10 documents: your letter of appointment, usually in your file; transfer, if there is a transfer from one agency to another, from one ministry to another. I know I mentioned that when we were talking about why retirement benefit varies. The age, evidence of age declaration or the birth certificate as provided, letters of promotion at different levels and at different years, That is letter of promotion is from number 4 to number 8. To the current level, the letter of introduction, that is at the first appointment, the staff identity card. Usually in the past, they used to use office identity card, but in recent times, they request for the government recognized identity card, which can be your national ID card, your name slip, your voter's card, your international passport, or your driver's license. So authenticated past record of service, which is a collation of all these items in your file. Also, this from number 11 downward, the evidence for those in the federal system of government, the evidence of IPPIS registration. IPPIS is just like our name for those who are in the federal system of government. Letter of evidence of letter of retirement or evidence of retirement, as the case may be, either the letter in which one's employee serves one that one can go on retirement at this time, or the one in which one used to request that one is expected to go on retirement at a particular point in time and was approved. Acceptance of voluntary retirement. In the case of voluntary retirement, for retirees that retire voluntarily, people that decide at this time they want to go into another industry, they want to work elsewhere, and they retire voluntarily. Letter of indemnity from MDA stating retirement benefits of the retiree or at the point of disengagement. Evidence of registration with a PFA. Those are part of the information they would require. So our national ID card, NIN, our BVN, evidence of NIN, which is our name slip or a national ID card. And our name slip, we can get our name slip and our BVN slip in recent times much more easily. For those who have linked their NIN to their bank account, you can get it through your bank. The evidence of BVN, you can also get that from your bank. The PDO will usually write a letter, a cover letter. That is the PDO's letter of attestation, the pension desk officer, then one passport photograph. The next slide will tell us things we need to note. Please, while these documents are being collated, we need to note this clearly and carefully. That verification can be done either physically or online. Okay, I'm sure video series is this, okay. But looking at the last line, or the second to the last line, all retirees or prospective retirees are expected to update their records with their respective PFAs. So once you are a year to your retirement or 2 years to your retirement, you are expected to go back to your PFA, which is your pension fund administrator, to go and update your record, just your basic record, your name, your date of birth. They'll take your biometrics again, they'll take your passport photograph and the likes again. But for those who work in the states, who would start accessing their retirement benefits 2 or 3 years after they might have retired, then I will encourage us to go back to our PDO, to our PFAs, whenever our bond is said to be ready, to go and confirm that our records are up to date. There are 2 things that can hinder us from beginning to access our retirement benefits even when our bond is ready. Usually, a mistake in the spelling of our name on any of those documents that were presented. Once a disparity is found in the spelling of our name, or a disparity is found in our date of birth, then one might not be able to process the pension even when the bond is ready. So for such reasons, we advise people who know they have disparities. Most people know when they have disparities, that they presented one age at one time and another at another time, or they've been presenting a particular age or two, and when they went to do registration of either BVN or registration of their national ID card or NIN, a mistake was made and a new date of birth was made. one should please ensure that one tries to rectify that as fast as possible so that it doesn't hinder one from enjoying or processing the retirement benefits when it is ready after one has even waited for 1, 2, or 3 years to get it done. Now, how do you access your retirement benefits? A basic explanation is your RSA balance at the point when you get your bond and you see, okay, I have 5 million, I have 7 million, I have 10 million. It's usually divided into 2 portions when you want to access your retirement benefits. The first portion is usually called the lump sum, and the lump sum is usually between 25 to 50% of your RSA balance. 25 to 50% as stated by the law. The recommended percentage will be decided after computation is done and some of the metrics have been considered. The lump sum replaces the old gratuity. You know, in the old pension scheme, they call it gratuity, but in the new pension scheme, it is called lump sum. So some people will get 25%, which is the minimum. Some people will get 50%, which is the maximum. And some will get within 25 to 50%, which is the range. I know in recent times, some of us would have seen on the news in which some agencies of government are trying to approach the National Assembly for a upward review to as much as 75% of their RSA as lump sum. The latest update on that is that the industry regulators have also written back to the Assembly to tell the Assembly the implication of giving a higher value to a retiree as lump sum. Let me use an analogy to explain it. Let us assume a retiree retires with 10 million naira as the RSA balance, as the balance in the retirement savings account. If the retiree is entitled to 25% lump sum, the retiree gets 2.5 million naira as lump sum, and 7.5 million naira is now used to calculate the monthly pension. If the retiree gets as much as 50% as lump sum, the retiree gets 5 million naira upfront and now uses the remaining 5 million naira balance to calculate his remaining monthly pension. In the case of someone who has gotten 25% and now has 7.5 million naira to calculate his or her lump sum, the person will be getting a higher amount. Let me just use an average amount. The person on a monthly basis will be going on with something around 75,000 monthly, while someone who also retired with 10 million but got 50% lump sum will be going on with about 50,000 naira monthly, which means from the remaining balance, which is 5 million, when it was calculated, they could get the person like 50,000 monthly, while for someone who had a balance of 7.5 million to go into the second portion, will be getting like 5,000 naira monthly. So that is how that works. The second portion is the balance after the first portion has been separated. After the first portion, which is the lump sum, has been separated, you now come across the second portion. This is the part. This is the part being spread into monthly or periodic collection. The monthly or periodic collection is determined by the simple calculation using the mortality table published by the Institute of Actuaries of UK. Our pension system in Nigeria is modeled in line with that of about 4 countries, but the actuaries table, the mortality table for the actuaries we use is that of the UK. So when they use that actuaries table to do the computation, just like I was using an example of someone who now has 7.5 in the second portion, 7.5 million naira in the second portion, the person can earn 80,000. He can earn an average of 75,000. He can earn 70,000. That is usually subject to the calculation on the actuaries table, which would also consider some realities or some economic realities at the point of processing the retirement benefits. Also, the following documents are required for accessing your lump sum and for purchasing an annuity or either a program withdrawal, an annuity with an insurance company, or a program withdrawal with your PFA. Your passport photograph will be required. Your beneficiary's passport photograph will also be required. Your birth certificate or age declaration will be required. Your letter of requirement will be required. Your bond certificate will be required for those in the States. For federal, they don't usually use a bond certificate. The pay slip of your last 3 months pay slip is also required. A stamped indemnity form, usually stamped at a court. Any court can get that done. A magistrate court, an high court can give you an indemnity, can stamp an indemnity form for you. Means of identification, just like I said, a government recognized means of identification, international passport, driver's license, national ID card, name card, and the likes. Statement of accounts or a bank confirmation slip. You can get a bank confirmation slip from the bank, or either use a statement of account. Just a statement of account just indicating 1 week is enough, or better still, you can use a slip, a check leaf. It is just to identify that Mr. XYZ has this particular account and we are not paying the money for Mr. Ade into Mr. Ade's account. You know, Ade is AADE and Mr. Ade is ADE. Just to be sure that we are not paying Mr. Ade's retirement benefits into Mr. Ade's account. That is why the request for either a statement of accounts or a bank confirmation slip. Then an annuity agreement for those of us or for retirees who opt for annuity, and a program withdrawal agreement for those who opt for program withdrawal. So on my next slide, okay, we are just above 1 hour on this program. This slide shows us a relationship within program withdrawal and annuity. So I'll be using highlights to identify each one as I talk. PW indicates program withdrawal. Program withdrawal is a product for receiving monthly pension offered by the PFA, regulated by the National Pension Commission. It's a product by the PFA, which is regulated by the National Pension Commission. While annuity is a product offered by a licensed life insurance company regulated by both the National Pension Commission and NICOM, the National Insurance Commission. So I said annuity is a product offered by the life insurance company, a licensed, in quotes, a licensed life insurance company. So not all insurance companies can provide you with annuity. It is only those that are licensed to offer the service called annuity. For both program withdrawal and annuity, when we look at payment period, program withdrawal pays pension over an expected lifespan. Please note the word expected lifespan. And until the retirement savings account balance runs out. So program withdrawal does its own calculation and, okay, with an expected lifespan after using the mortality table, but usually with an average guarantee period of 10 years, but program withdrawal does not state a guarantee period for you. So when this fund is exhausted, then it is assumed that that is when the expected lifespan ends. While annuity pays pension for life with a minimum guarantee period of 10 years, please note a minimum guarantee period that at least you must benefit this for 10 years, and after 10 years, you will continue to benefit it for life. Let me switch my screen a bit because I want to reference what I've just said here from the document called the Pension Reform Act. I know I've mentioned about the Pension Reform Act earlier. So let me try to get the Pension Reform Act.
Hello, sir. Hello.
Hello, can we see the Pension Reform Act? In part 3 of the Pension Reform Act, which is on page 10, I am trying to zoom it so that we can have a larger view and a clearer view. Let me still see if I can enlarge it a bit further. Okay, good. Part 3 of the Pension Reform Act talks about retirement benefits. And if we look through 3A, withdrawal of lump sum from the total amount credited to his retirement savings account, provided that the amount left after the lump sum withdrawal shall be sufficient to procure a programmed fund. Note the word procure. That is why I said both program withdrawal and annuity are procured, are sufficient to procure a program fund, withdrawals, or annuity for life in accordance with the extant guidelines issued by the Commission. Please let us know that in this particular session or in this particular paragraph, it says if the lump sum, after lump sum, if the balance shall be sufficient. Sufficient indicates that the person has at least 500,000 after retirement benefit, after the lump sum is paid. If after the removal of the retirement of the lump sum, the person or the retiree has less than 500,000, then the amount is said to be insufficient and is paid off to the retiree upfront. So they pay it in bulk. We use the word in bulk. So if the balance is less than 500,000 after a lump sum is paid, then they pay the retiree in bulk, and the retiree is unable to either purchase program withdrawal or purchase annuity. In paragraph B of section 3 says program withdrawal. Programmed now talks about program withdrawal. The program monthly or for quarterly withdrawals calculated on the basis of expected lifespan. Please note, expected lifespan. So if the expected lifespan was assumed to be 10 years and 3 months, and the retiree eventually lives for 11 or 12 years, that means the retiree must have exhausted the funds on program withdrawal at 10 years, 3 months, and would not be entitled to anything again till the retiree demises. So that means the retiree should understand that he or she would enjoy program withdrawal for an expected lifespan. Please, the document I'm using particularly is called the Pension Reform Act. The latest Pension Reform Act is Pension Reform Act 2014. We can go online and just use your Google to search, and you download Pension Reform Act 2014. Once you just type Pension Reform Act 2014, you will find a document called Pension Reform Act 2014, particularly from PENCOM. You see that the website indicates PENCOM. So please download the one from PENCOM. There is also a copy of the National Assembly's website, but download the one from PENCOM. The one on National Assembly's website is also the same thing. It shows you the same document, and it is not a document that has been manipulated by anyone. So also in paragraph C talks about annuity. Annuity for life, purchased from a life insurance company licensed by the National Insurance Commission with monthly or quarterly payments in line with the guidelines jointly issued issued by the Commission. The word Commission here, please, let me highlight it. The word Commission here is talking about the National Pension Commission and the National Insurance Commission. That is guidelines jointly issued by the Commission and the National Insurance Commission. So please, what I want us to note here is that annuity, just as it is always written, annuity for life. And it pays the retiree for life. So as much as annuity has, just like program withdrawal, as much as both program withdrawal and annuity has a guaranteed period of 10 years, program withdrawal do not usually state it. Annuity states it, and it's a guaranteed period of a minimum of 10 years, meaning one will continue to enjoy it after 10 years. But in the case of demise, within 10 years, then once beneficiaries or once named beneficiaries will be the one to benefit the balance. So in the case of program withdrawal, if the retiree demises before the expected lifespan, which is calculated, it was calculated that the retiree might live for 11 years, so the money was spaced for 11 years, and the retiree eventually lives for 6 years. The remaining balance will go to the named beneficiary, just like if the retiree lives for 6 years on annuity, the remaining balance will also go to the named beneficiary. So the Pension Reform Act is a 62 pages document. I can advise us to download it and take your time to read through it. The part that talks about the retirement benefit processing or the retirement benefits, which is part 3, is on page 10. So we can also go to it from there. I think I can go back to my old slide now so that I can continue with the initially prepared slide.
Hello, sir.
Hello, I can hear you, ma'am. Okay, I can see you are raising up your hand now. Okay.
Yes, my hand has been up since. Good afternoon.
Oh, I'm very sorry, I didn't check that.
Okay. Thank you for the lecture and enlightenment. It's so educating. Sir, you said the first option, that is a lump sum in the other slide, that one can be
Yes.
paid between 25 to 50%.
Yes, ma'am.
What is the criteria used to determine whether I deserve 25% or 50%?
Okay. I'm going to go to that slide. Okay, this is a particular slide.
Yes, sir.
The criteria considered. This is where we have usually between 25 to 50% of one's retirement savings account balance.
Yes.
The criteria used. One, I noted here that there is a mortality table for calculation. That is one. Two, our sex is considered, whether we are male or female. Our age at the point of retirement is considered. And there are two other things. The age, the sex. Age relates to date of birth. The sex, the mortality table, that is 3. And I think the balance, yes, the balance that will be left after one withdraws the lump sum. So usually, because there is a rule, okay, I didn't mention that earlier. There is a rule that the monthly pension, that they should try as much as possible to compute the monthly pension to be at least 50% of the person's last pay slip. Okay, pay slip is the fourth document I wanted to remember. So when you look at your pay slip, it is expected that if it's possible for the PFA to compute one's pension to be at least 50% of one's last pay slip. So they check the values, all those values are put together, they are just simply typed into the system. It runs through a particular formula which runs it on the mortality table and comes out with a recommended percentage. So it is not even the person on that desk that determines the percentage one is encouraged to get, but it comes up with a recommended percentage. So usually, one will be given a template at the point when you want to process your lump sum. The template will tell you what the recommended percentage is. The template will also indicate the minimum lump sum one can get, and it will also indicate the maximum lump sum one can get. So let me assume that the person has enough funds. The template can say, okay, one will get 35%, or one is recommended to get 35% lump sum. The minimum one can get is 25. The template can now state that the maximum one can get is, let's say, 45. You know, it's recommending 35 and saying the maximum one can get is 45, meaning that if one gets above 45, it will go against other rules that guides the monthly pension. So that way, one is usually advised to take the recommended. One can willingly take the minimum. And if one is to take the maximum, one is going to write, in most cases, an undertaking requesting for the maximum recommended. So I think I've been able to answer that, ma. Hello, ma. Hello, Mrs. Omede.
I'm with you. Thank you.
Have I been able to answer that, ma?
Yes, sir. So now
Okay,
what
thank
it
you very
means
much.
that as a female, I'm not entitled to 50%.
I can't get that, ma.
I say what it implies that being a woman, because you say one of the criteria too is the gender.
Yes.
As a woman, I may not be entitled to 50%.
Okay, let me explain from my experience in the industry. From my experience in the industry, we have seen that in most cases, even women get higher lump sum than men. In most cases, women get higher lump sum than men. Usually, the calculation assumes, or the computation assumes, that men have more dependents than women. So in such cases, the computation gives a higher monthly to men and a lower lump sum to men, while a higher lump sum to women and a lower monthly to women. I think I get it. You can get it. It's an inverse relationship. When you get a higher lump sum, you get a lower monthly. When you get a lower lump sum, you get a higher monthly. So that is how it usually works. So can I go ahead with the slide?
Hello, sir.
I'm trying to read a question I can find here. Good morning, sir. I had a problem of non-remittance of contribution from 2006 up to 2010. Though I complained and submitted necessary documents, sir, do you think the error will be eventually? Okay, yes. I have to say this clearly, that do I think the error will eventually affect the total contribution compared to my counterparts? I have seen situations where, yes, that error will affect the total contribution compared to one's counterparts. However, at any point in time when that error is resolved, let us assume one's counterpart, which you started together and were on the same grade level together, retired with a total of, let me say, 10 million, and one is now retiring with 9 million. After the error has been resolved, because one has complained, it might be resolved 6 months after, it might be resolved a year after, and one has begun to even enjoy the present retirement benefits. That part that was resolved will still come back to be paid into one's RSA. So let us assume it was resolved after 1 year. They will now say, okay, your query last year has been resolved. It now comes in as an additional sum. An additional sum of 1 million has been paid into your RSA. You will now be asked to go and process that one too separately, either for program withdrawal or for annuity. So people who had similar experience, we are some of those in the Federal Civil Service who had similar experience lately. We are some of those in the Federal Civil Service who, after their retirement, they were told that they were whole arrears, which they were supposed to have been paid while they were in service. So the arrears were now paid. This is now years after some of them have started receiving their retirement benefits. At least I have retirees who have been receiving their retirement benefits 3-4 years on the line now, and they are now told late last year that they had arrears as at the time they were working, which they were supposed to have been paid. And they paid the arrears to them, and they processed it to their retirement, to an addition into their retirement benefits. So one will surely get it once it is resolved. So I'll say don't feel too bad that the system could not resolve it as fast as possible. I mean, your employer could not resolve it as fast as possible. But keep pestering on them. Hopefully they will resolve it. Once they resolve it and it's paid into your retirement savings account, you will surely have rights to access it and process it. Thank you. Any further questions before I go back into the slide? I'm trying to ensure that we work within 1 hour 30 minutes, but I can see 3 minutes to 1 hour 30 minutes right now. Any further questions? Okay, let me rush back to the slide and see what I can do within the next 5 minutes. Because I know today is Friday, some people will want to go to the mosque and some people will have some other engagements. Hopefully next month, we'll continue from where we stopped. It's going to be a monthly engagement and we'll continue from where we stopped. So we stopped precisely on this slide. Yes, on this slide. Where we were talking about who regulates program withdrawal and who regulates annuity. So I think we now know the difference between program withdrawal and annuity, which one is for an estimated, unexpected lifespan, and which one pays for life. Okay, the next one is a question on that same slide. Whenever a retiree dies, the beneficiary, the question is payment to beneficiary. That's how do we process payment to beneficiary when the retiree dies? In the case, whenever a retiree dies, the beneficiary will provide a letter of administration. In the case of program withdrawal, letter of administration is required. While in the case of annuity, they only need the death certificate. And after the letter of administration is gotten, or the death certificate is provided and processed at the PFA, the balance will be paid en bloc from the retirement savings account to whoever is or are the named beneficiary. Please note my word, is or are. In some cases, some people will list 3 people as their beneficiaries. And in case of one's demise, I have 3 children. Give my first son 20%. Give my second son 20%. Give my third daughter the remaining 60%. Some people do that, give the youngest child the higher percentage with the assumption that most likely by the time they might give up to the ghost, their first and second or their older children would have been settled. They would have graduated, they would have been settled, they would have been working. So they depend, or they are less dependent on whatever they are handing over to them. So they try to hand over higher amounts to their younger ones or to the youngest ones, so that at least there will be some amounts set aside for the upkeep of the younger one. But in some cases, some retirees just give a flat amount to everybody. Please give them equal percentage, and some retirees at times alternate the percentage based on the love they have for their respective children. Whichever being the case, once the death certificate is presented in the case of annuity, or letter of administration in the case of program withdrawal, the named beneficiaries would only provide their details, their IDs, and their account details. Usually, they will not be told the respective percentages they are to be paid, but they will be told who and who and who are the named beneficiary as named by the parents. So please, we should also note that if the retiree dies within the guaranteed payment period, that is the minimum guaranteed payment period. In the case of both program withdrawal and annuity, the balance paid is called a surrender value. Shall be paid as en bloc, lump sum, to the estate. We understand when they say use the word estate in law, it refers to the dependents or the beneficiaries of the retiree or named beneficiary. So, okay, let me try to see if I can run through this within the next 3 to 5 minutes so that we can end this session maximum 12:10. Or let me take questions first before I try to run through this page again. Do we have any questions? Please, questions? Questions? If there are no questions, let me welcome my senior colleague, Mrs. Stella Obi, to make some comments. Mrs. Stella. Okay, please, I don't know if you would like to make some comments or you would like to advise.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Stella Obi. Mr. Slukman has done justice to his presentation, and he did a very good job at it. Just as he has given a profound. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but you need to raise your voice a bit louder.
Okay, I think I should be.
Can you hear me better?
Yes, better.
Okay. So, as I said, he has given a profound definition and analysis based on retirement benefits. Retirement benefit. But I'm an expert in when it comes to annuity. And so far, he has broken it down to the level of A, B, C, and 1, 2, 3. Explaining the difference between the annuity program and the program withdrawal. So it's just based on choice, or if you need further clarification, then that is when I will need to go deeper into it. Well, at the moment, I don't know if there are questions that you need on annuity, because that is my area of expertise. I can come in and explain better, but at the moment he has done justice to it. So if there are any further questions, you need to get clarification on an annuity, I'm here to assist. Thank you so much, Mr. Lukman.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. I wouldn't know if Mrs. Uchenna is also online. She's also a senior colleague from Lead Reassurance. Mrs. Uchenna, are you there? Mrs. Uchenna, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, I can't see her online right now. I wouldn't know if we still have any question. Any question? Wow. Okay. I think someone wants to talk now. Any question? I think someone is using TechnoSpark 7. He wants to speak. Please, sir, TechnoSpark 7, you didn't connect your audio. Try to click the lower left corner of your screen. You will see connect via audio. Try to connect your audio. You didn't connect your audio. I can see you are trying to speak, but the audio is not coming in. But for me, I can see you didn't connect the audio. The audio connector is usually at the lower left corner of your screen. I still can't hear him. Audio is not connected. I think that's our father in red shirts. We can't hear you, sir. Well, I still can't hear him. Let me try to rush through the next slide within the remaining 3 minutes so that we can end this session for 12:10. Okay, yes. This continues from where the last question ends. So the upper part is where the last question, which the last slide ends. Then frequency of payments. Frequency of payments for both program withdrawal or annuity is decided or determined by the retiree. The retiree can say the lowest frequency of payments is monthly, but the retiree can say, okay, because I don't need this money monthly, why not make it quarterly so that it will come as something a bit bigger? Why not make it half yearly so that I can get it twice a year? Why not make it yearly so I can just use it to offset my rent or something like that? So the retiree can state whatever time he or she needs the payments to be made, either monthly, quarterly, biannually, or annually. Then commencement of payments. Most people wish to know when does payments commence. Monthly payments commence from the date PENCOM approves either program withdrawal or annuity. In whichever of the case, we are going to submit an agreement either from program withdrawal or for annuity. Once the agreement has been submitted to the PFA moves the agreement to PENCOM for approval. That this is what they have offered a particular retiree based on the information of the retiree. Once PENCOM approves the payment, that the agreement, then from that month, the monthly pension will begin to be paid. But the sign in which you will see in most cases, retirees will not be told that your agreement has been approved by PENCOM, but rather they will see one sign, and the sign is within 2 or 3 days after the agreement has been approved, they will get their lump sum. So once your lump sum is paid into your account, that is from your RSA, from your retirement savings account into your bank account, then that means your agreement has been approved by PENCOM. So usually, as at the time that lump sum is paid into your account, the balance is also transferred into the program withdrawal box or to the life insurance for annuity. So if it comes to the life insurance for annuity, the month in which your balance is transferred is the month in which you begin to enjoy your retirement benefits. Same thing applies to program withdrawal. I want to say thank you very much. I want to appreciate everybody for participating in today's program. Next month will be another day. I would communicate the date as soon as possible. I don't have my calendar here. Let me check my calendar. Oh, it's not this room. Okay, I'm trying to check the calendar because a date has already been proposed for next month's seminar. Okay, it's not here. Okay, I'll communicate to the right persons, to the officers in charge, the new date. Okay, for the month of May, we shall be having this same program, a continuation of this program on 20th of May, Friday, 20th May, 2020. So please, I encourage us and I urge us to advise our friends and our colleagues, both in our respective ministries and from other ministries, departments, and agencies, to join interest, show interest and join in so that they can have adequate information and also process their retirement benefits rightly. Thank you very much, everyone. I'm trying to just run through the pictures and see who I can just pick a name just to give us a closing prayer. I can see one, Mrs. Williams. Mrs. Williams Roots. I think are Greek. I don't know if Mrs. Williams Roots from Greek can give us a closing prayer.
It's my wife's phone that I'm using, bearing that name.
Okay, no problem, sir.
You with me, sir?
We are with you, sir.
Can I speak in Yoruba?
Anyone, sir.
Yeah. Let's gbàdúrà. Ọpẹ́ yẹ wà bàbá Ọlọ́run mímọ́ nínú àwọn ọ̀run. Àmọ̀rírì ààbò ohun ẹ̀ṣọ́ rẹ̀ lórí pípa wà láyé wa mọ́dé àkókò sísìn yìí. A sì dúpẹ́ fún àwọn aláṣẹ àtàwọn alákòóso tó bójútó tó lẹ́sẹẹsẹ yìí. Ní fífún wa ní ìdánilẹ́kọ̀ọ́ lórí bí a ó ṣe lo àjẹṣẹ́kù wa tó wà ní ìkáwọ́ wọn. Àmọ̀rírì ìdánilẹ́kọ̀ọ́ náà ó sì ṣe wa láǹfààní, ó fi wa lọ́kàn balẹ̀. Jọ̀ọ́ wá ran ilé-iṣẹ́ yìí àti ẹ̀ka ilé-iṣẹ́ tẹ́nìkan ti ṣiṣẹ́ lọ́wọ́ kó bá lè ṣeé ṣe fún wa láti lo ìyókù ìgbésí ayé wa ní lílo oògùn wa tàti jẹ àjẹṣẹ́kù rẹ̀ láti lò fún ògo rẹ̀. Dárí ìgbésẹ̀ wa kó sì dárí àwọn àṣìṣe wa pẹ̀lú jì wa lórúkọ Jésù Kristi Olúwa wa.
Amen. Amen. So thank you very much. Always feel free to refer friends and colleagues who want to process their retirement benefits to me via my phone number 080-8879-1225. Once again, the phone number is 080-8879-1225. I am always available on that line, and I'll be willing to assist anyone who is willing to process and ready to process their retirement benefit when it is ready to process the retirement benefit. I'm going to write the number on the screen. So please, that is my number.
25.
Irrespective of wherever your friends or colleagues are, as far as they are people who have worked in Nigeria, even if they are abroad and they want to process their retirement benefits, the Nigerian retirement benefits in which they have, please feel free to contact me. Any state in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I used to say Maiduguri is not a distance, neither is Sambisa a distance, to connect with our colleagues over there to help them process their retirement benefits seamlessly. Thank you very much and have a wonderful day. Goodbye.